The words freedom and friendship came from the same root word, and along the way they kind of veered apart, but they can't ever fully be separated. Freedom, like friendship, requires moral devotion. It's why Adam Smith put freedom at the very center of capitalism, a system that relies on exchange and cooperation while also fueling individualism. It is the beauty of capitalism when it is unspoiled. You get to be yourself, and you also get to be around other people who are being themselves. But lately, all of our communities are being swarmed by what our next guest refers to as the collective. You know the collective. You know it probably very well by now. It's the brainless mob of leftists destroying everything in its path. It ambushes our lives. It is the cancel culture, fake news, political correctness, immorality of every kind. It's the indoctrination of our children. They know better. The war on the police, the tyranny of the state, the godlike power of big tech. The collective is one enormous Jabba the Hutt made out of shrieking leftists. Don't get me wrong. It could be the right doing it, but it's not. The collective is coming from the left. It gets people fired for its nonsense. It destroys anything sacred. It mocks faith. It ruins family, love. It wants us to own nothing and promises that when we do, we will be happy. It burns down our cities, all in the name of peace. We all remember the riots of 2020, and today's guest certainly does. The collective is a cult full of the same people who are the same. It has no soul, and it hates you that you do have a soul or that you are different. It hates the individual. It doesn't speak. It erases. Most of all, it's defined by its total lack of freedom. Today's guest understands that if we want future generations to live free, we have to defend liberty right now. He knows that freedom demands courage and rebellion. He's done it his entire life. It's what motivated him to write his latest book, Don't Burn This Country, Surviving and Thriving in Our Woke Dystopia. His goal is, well, I would say it's simple, but no, it's not. Save America, restore liberty, rescue individualism before the plague destroys everything. What's the alternative? He talks a lot about courage in his book, and he is one of the most courageous men I know. Please welcome my good friend, Dave Rubin. Inflation is completely out of control, and we see that more than ever in the grocery store. Prices keep hitting all-time highs. New ones. Hey, look, have you seen the price of meat lately? The highs for meat and seafood. Cooking and grilling at home used to be the way to save money, but not eating is really the way to save money. Prices are up nearly 20%. If you're looking to save money without sacrificing quality and food, please check out Good Ranchers. As you know, I am a rancher, and the American rancher is about to go under. They are being killed, slaughtered on every front. How are they going to feed their animals? How are they going to sell their animals? And meanwhile, the big meat, what are they doing? They're buying them cheap, putting the ranchers out. So who? Bill Gates can buy their land? Good Ranchers, they're American ranchers, and they deliver American meat to your door. Not only has inflation gone up, but the amount of imported beef has gone up as well. That's another reason to shop the selection of 100% American meat. We have to have ranchers and farmers in our country. Right now, you can get $30 off their already low price by visiting goodranchers.com/Glenn, Glenn. You can do a one-time order, or you can subscribe and save an additional $25 on each box. Here's the secret. I don't know how they're going to stay in business. When you subscribe, your price will never go up for the life of your subscription. Try doing that at the butcher store or at the grocery store. Not going to happen. Good Ranchers locks in that price if you subscribe. It's convenient, easy to manage. You're going to be torn between talking about how great the food is and how much money you have saved. $30 discount on prime steaks and better than organic chicken today. GoodRanchers.com/Glenn. Save on the quality you're looking for. American meat. GoodRanchers.com/Glenn. Glenn. Dave, as always, welcome.
Glenn, it is good to be with you, my friend.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about all the stuff that we talk about off camera as well?
Yes, we are. We're going to talk about everything. You've got your book, Don't Burn This Country. And I want to start with a story, and I have a reason. It's not self-aggrandizing, I promise. I want you to start with a story that you included in the book about this document.
Ooh, I like where you're going. I like when you bring props, my friend.
So that's Raoul Wallenberg, Schutz Pass. And you talk about it in the book.
So I talked about it because of a conversation that we had about a year and a half ago in this very building where you told me the whole story about Raoul Wallenberg. And the purpose of the book, really, and why I included the story, and we can dive into some of the details, is I want people to feel a little bravery again. Mm-hmm. I want people to be ready to do something good before it's too late. And I think if everyone looks back on these last 2 years, it's like, man, we let a lot of stuff go. We just all of us, and I would include us, even the guys that talk about it for a living and we're saying no mandates, and we could have done more. You know, it's a little bit of, not to
Schindler's.
You got me, man.
I think about that all the time. How many people could this ring have purchased?
That you know, I don't know how true actually. I'm sure there was a little bit of a poetic license at the end of Schindler's List.
But he thought it.
But he had to have thought it, right? Because as he was saving these people, he could have always, think of how many families got broke up right before he could get the wife or the child or the husband or whatever it might be. So I include the story because we all did it. We all weren't ready. We all weren't ready when something came to our door. Hey, we're locking you down. Hey, we're doing mask mandates. Hey, we're firing people from their jobs. We weren't ready to stand up. And it is not easy to stand up. Raoul Wallenberg, it was not easy to stand up. And you have to be prepared for that. In the same chapter, I talk about Rudy Giuliani a little bit. And I was in New York during 9/11. And Rudy, I mean, he saved the nation. He really did. If people remember, it's not that long ago. It seems like a long time ago. It's not that long ago, 21 years basically, that the whole nation felt like it was falling apart. There were those days where we were like, holy cow, is this country actually done? We have no idea what's happening right now.
Never, until recently, never felt this country could be gone in a day. And on September 11th through maybe the 15th or so, I wasn't sure we were going to make it.
Nobody knew. Yeah. Nobody knew. And I can tell you, as someone that lived in New York City and I had a lot of family in New York City, I had friends staying at my apartments because they couldn't get to Long Island, couldn't get to the boroughs because everything was shut down. But Rudy, and this is the same sort of idea, Rudy was ready to lead. But it wasn't that he was ready to lead just like this, right? He wasn't ready to lead like out of nowhere. What did it come from? It came from fighting the mob for years as Attorney General. It came from years worth of stuff, years worth of putting the work in to be ready for something that he wouldn't know that he needed to be ready for. And I think that's what all of us have to kind of be doing right now, because whatever just happened with COVID that we seem to be somewhat out of, although I suspect not fully, and you've been writing a lot and talking a lot about some of the things that are coming down the pike. If we think about it clearly, we'll be ready when the next crazy thing happens. When they tell us, oh no, you can't drive on Wednesdays and Thursdays because of climate change, or you should put masks back on because of this or that. We'll be ready, hopefully, to stand up a little bit more. One thing I can tell you is that in this last 2 weeks since the book came out and I went on tour and I'm on planes every single day and I'm in all these different cities, to suddenly go to airports where nobody's wearing a mask and people are smiling again and people are talking to each other again, and you talk to the guy, whether it's for 4 hours on a flight or you just say hello. I mean, literally just say hello when you sit down, as opposed to just pretending it's not a human. But we all let it happen, and we can't let that happen again. That's really, in some ways, even though I wrote the book a year and a half ago, that's really the message. And I didn't know exactly how dire it was going to get, but that really is it.
So I'm really concerned because there's a couple of things that I think mentally we have to prepare for, because I think the odds are decent that they will come through. Well, let me give you a couple of them. And how do we prepare for them? One, I'm sorry, but something seems very wrong with the Ukrainian war thing. We keep upping. It's like we're begging for a war with Russia. And, like I said, with the COVID virus back in 2020 and in January of 2020, when they were still welding people in, I said, I think this is going to come, but it's not going to be 1919. It's not going to be the bubonic plague. It's not going to kill a third of us, I don't think. I said, but the ramifications of what we do and our economy are going to live on for a long time. Fear that. The same thing here. I don't think we're going to nuclear war. I can't believe people are actually talking about it. But we are probably going to get into war. Mm-hmm. And the steps, the draconian things that this government can do to suppress, they'll say, we're only doing this on social media because of Russians. We're only doing this because you're not supporting this particular program and we're at war. Those things can come and be very draconian. We should prepare for that.
Can come there here.
Yeah. But do you think that we are on the eve of a major war?
Well, it's interesting. At some level, you could argue we're at war right now. I mean, I know war has not been declared, but we also live in this very weird time where the Constitution is usually just pushed to the side, where we go to wars, or remember we had a kinetic military action in Libya because we didn't call it a war so that Congress wouldn't have to give it authorization. So we do all these strange things. So it's partly, do we just get lost in the technical term of what does war mean? What does any of this mean? I mean, by any, I think, standard definition or obvious de facto definition of war, we're at war. When you sanction the hell out of a country and then somehow, I mean, just going by what Joe Biden and the administration are saying, if in effect this is Putin's price hike at the pump, then you could argue that is an act of war. Now, I don't think it's Putin's price hike, right? I think this is the ineptitude of our own government. But if in essence what the administration is saying is, oh, this country is able to radically affect our economy by, turning down the oil, doing other financial measures, well, we're on top of that, we're arming people, right? We're sending them billions of dollars of assistance and military equipment.
4.7, then 13 billion, and now $33 billion.
Glenn, am I nuts, or could we use some of that money here? I know that's not how the whole system works. I know that's not how the game works, but do you think?
I know.
But that, I think, is sort of a more interesting part. It's not necessarily whether we're at war or not, because we are, in effect. We are at war one way or another. And yes, is there always this idea out there, basically, like, the guy's got nukes. The guy has nukes. You corner him, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. Right. But what I'm more interested in is just sort of, and I think this is what you're getting to, this sort of like slow descent into endless craziness. Like, look how quickly we moved from COVID to State of the Union. We're talking about war we're talking about war and not war for the first half hour. No masks in the room. The next day, Biden's outside with masks. And it's like, if you stayed roughly sane in these last couple of years, and by the way, my friend, you are on the short list of people that I know. If you stayed just ballpark sane, you don't have to be super sane, but if you stayed roughly sane, if you didn't throw all your values out the window, if you weren't screaming that people had to be injected with things and demanding other people be fired and calling for war in a country that you had never heard of before, and we could go on and on with a zillion examples, calling for people to be censored and all of the stuff. If you didn't do all that, you're pretty much okay in my book right now. And those are the people that I think we have to keep finding and talking to and giving a little of that bravery.
Yeah, because it really,
a little of this.
I don't know. I mean, we've talked about ESG and everything else is coming. It is draconian. The DHS, let's just talk a little bit about the DHS. What are they calling it? The Misinformation Board?
Yeah, I think it's disinformation. Yes, board. It's unclear to me what the difference between those two things are.
That is
disinformation.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, we are living in 1982.
Glenn, you're a man of history. The First Amendment, what is it again?
Speech, assembly, religion, petition. And there's another one I can't remember.
You're pretty good. Pretty good. I'll take that. The idea that the government, literally in the last day from us recording this right now, has put together this ministry of truth, in essence. I mean, we are in 1984. They have decided. I mean, it's so close. I mean, this is what they're doing with everything. They get so close to breaking all the rules that it puts us in a position where it's hard to figure out what the rules are. So for the last 2 years, how many times has Jen Psaki got up in those press conferences and said, yeah, we flag posts for Facebook. Well, okay, so what does that mean? Well, it doesn't, I suppose that's not directly the government saying we're going to infringe on free speech, but it's pretty damn close. What do they mean by flag? Are they applying some sort of pressure to Facebook? Do the executives at Facebook, when they get the call from the administration, do they just feel that they have to do things, or maybe they're going to be punished in other ways?
You want to talk about a power dynamic? Got a call from the White House. They'd like us to look into these people and say maybe they're not so great.
Do you think you might? Imagine if the guys at the Blaze got a call from the White House and they said, boy, you guys have been putting out some scary stuff and we're not telling you what to do, but we are concerned about that and we just want to let you know about that. Now, is that a veiled threat? Is that a direct assault on free speech? So the idea that they are now putting together, and not only, it's not just that they're putting it together. It's being backed by Hillary, right? She's sending these tweets. Obama's really into it. The same people who've lied to us about everything. Lied to us about COVID, lied to us about Brett Kavanaugh being a serial rapist, lied to us about Jussie Smollett, lied to us about very fine people on both sides, Donald Trump, lied to us about the Russia hoax, lied to us about Biden's laptop. I mean, I'm going to run out of fingers here.
I know.
So they lie about everything. Then a few of us are like, hey, guys, 2 years later, everything we keep saying turns out to be true. Now we got to watch out. We got to censor that. That's why this Elon Musk thing is so interesting right now.
So tell me about that.
I mean, look, the world's richest man, a man who not only, started SpaceX and Tesla, the guy shot a Tesla. He took a car and shot it into space to put it in orbit just for fun.
I know.
And I guess that sounds crazy, or why is he doing these things? But the point is, he is the true innovator of our time. Nobody, he's the Tesla of our time.
He is.
Right? He's the Nikola Tesla of our time.
And he may be more of a business guy than the actual dreamer of the technical,
right. So Tesla himself, right. So Tesla himself was the latter, right?
Correct.
So Tesla himself was the inventor. His businesses actually, although that had a lot to do with Edison also. And
I think, there's two pop culture things I'd love to get your read on.
Yeah.
One is Elon Musk. I don't even know where he stands politically. I know we disagree, I'm sure, on a ton of things. I'd vote for that guy in a heartbeat because he sees over the horizon on what can be.
Yes.
And he recognizes we're not living in 1973 anymore. Okay? Everything has changed. Let's go this way. And he seems unafraid.
That's what you need more than anything else.
Yeah.
And have we ever certainly in my lifetime, I don't remember ever needing it more. The idea that there's someone out there going, guys, there's something over there.
Yeah.
There's something over there. You don't have to stare down all the time.
Right.
And be beaten by this system that constantly wants you to bow to it. Oh, there's a new horizon over there. A few weeks ago on my show, I think it was the day that he made that announcement, I said, we are entering the post-woke world. And I think it's starting to develop right now. I think something is starting to shift. And if you look at the reaction, you don't even have to look at what the guy is doing, because we don't know what he's doing. I mean, this is the funny part.
He hasn't done anything.
He hasn't done
except I'm going to say, I'm going to open it up for free speech.
Now, the problem with that, of course, is that the lefties think, at least the modern lefties, think that the neutrality of speech is violence, right? So if you were to say, they believe that unless you're actively policing speech enough to protect their supposed marginalized groups, that in and of itself is an act of violence. He's saying, hey, say what you want. And by the way, he's not saying, first off, they haven't come up with the policies yet. That's number one. The deal's not even dried yet, right? So he's got to figure out some of that stuff. But in essence, all he's saying is, hey, let's all be here. And let's have as much open discourse as we could. That's what we all thought we had 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's saying legal
free
speech. You can't say, these people are on MSNBC and they're saying, I getting rape threats and death threats. That's illegal.
First off,
that's illegal.
I would welcome anyone watching this to take a look at Glenn Beck's mentions on Twitter, or take a look at Dave Rubin's mentions on Twitter. People say a lot of bad things, mean things to us all day long. And guess what? When they're genuinely violent, usually it gets deleted by Twitter. And once in a blue moon, I've had to report things that I thought were genuine threats. But yes, you're allowed to say mean things, and you're not going to believe this.
But not illegal things.
No, not illegal things. But do you know about the block button? There's a button that you can press.
What?
And then other people can't see your stuff anymore.
How self-unaware were they when they said, Elon Musk, he could just ban people and no one would even know.
Almost as if they've been doing this.
They self-diagnose all the time.
Is that the most extraordinary thing that we've seen? Like that it's confession through projection.
Yeah, it is.
That's a great phrase that my friend Viva Frei came up with, I think. That they constantly are telling you what they're doing, and they're telling you that you're the one doing it. You have to admire it.
I've been saying this since the Tides Foundation. I tried to get a bunch of conservatives to make a clean model of the Tides Foundation, okay? Fund all these groups, just do it cleanly, okay? Because I noticed every time they would say, they're doing this, I'd go to the map of the Tides Foundation, I go, oh, it's right there. They always project what they're doing. Right now, Donald Trump, he's saying stolen election. Do you think they're not going to be claiming that this fall?
Glenn, do you remember the 4 years that he was president? I'm pretty sure that a few people were saying he was an illegitimate president.
I just read a poll that the majority of Democrats still believe Hillary Clinton won 2016. And don't get started with Al Gore.
So what can we do? And that really is the purpose of the book. What can we do? I think, as Jordan Peterson would say, you have to give the devil his due. These people have done a tremendous amount of damage to the country. For all of our good efforts, for all of the people that have been fighting this, whether in their own personal life or at a professional level or as broadcasters or whatever, they've done a tremendous amount of damage. They've destroyed the institutions, educational institutions, political institutions, cultural institutions. They infected these things like Disney. They did that, and we have to sit there and acknowledge that and go, man, that is real, and they did it, and they did it on our watch, and we didn't stop it. We might have tried to stop it, but we didn't. So what can we do? We have to separate from them, and I really mean that. Now, I mean it sort of geographically. I mean it personally. I mean it philosophically. They're not going to stop. They may lose a little momentum right now. It does feel like they're losing momentum, but they are not going to stop.
They are. I am convinced they are. If I can't have you, no one will.
Yeah.
What do you mean by them? Let's define them.
So I would say the woke set of people. So what really is that? So the people who have taken the time-tested bad ideas of socialism. So you've got sort of you have the economic version of it. So you have like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie. So, okay, the bad ideas of economic socialism that we know don't work, that often cause all sorts of killing in all sorts of other places, but they want to inject that here and it never really works. Okay, fine. You have them, and then what they did. And this was the magic trick that the wokesters really pulled off. Bernie started coming in with all the socialist ideas and started getting this sort of populist rage behind him. And some of it was warranted, by the way, because the system was so broke. That populism made sense, right? You may disagree with the economics, so guys like us, we disagree with the economics, but the sort of main message of something's really broke and we've got to sort of fix it, that kind of makes sense. So that was kind of moving along. And then the wokesters, the people who took cultural socialism or cultural Marxism, the idea that equity comes before equality and that your skin color and your gender and your sexuality and your if you're able or unable, whatever they want to call it, that all of these things, they combine that into something that was a really sort of disgusting monster that then caused all of the cancel culture. It infected all the institutions. And I've long been arguing, it's a very sad thing for me to be arguing, but my first book, which was a defense of classical liberalism, which I still think is the right set of ideas in a sane world, they infected the liberals. Liberals used to stand for free speech. They do not anymore.
No.
They used the tolerance, the soft underbelly of the liberals, which liberals put tolerance at the highest pinnacle, right? And that's a problem because then, of course, as you know, you become tolerant of intolerance. And they got in, they infected all of these things, and they're not going to stop. So Disney lost $41 billion in the last 3 weeks. And why did it lose it? Because they've been infected, and then one man, Ron DeSantis, said no more. And that I love. The idea that one man, Elon Musk, is one man. Now, he may be an extraordinary person, and he's the Tony Stark of our time, and it's hard to imagine a guy sending Teslas into space, but he's one guy who could have done whatever he wanted. If he wanted to put his family on a rocket tomorrow and disappear from Earth and all of our mortal problems gone, he could do it. But instead, he got into the biggest fight possible, the free speech fight. Elon Musk is one guy. Ron DeSantis is one guy. Judge Mizell, the 35-year-old female Trump-appointed judge in Tampa, who just said, nope, no more mask mandates. And then what happens? Everybody rips them off. COVID isn't going crazy for the last 2 weeks. One woman. So we just need the individual to say no to the machine. And
well,
then,
it is starting to. It is starting to happen. You know, I've been saying, where is Churchill? Where's even an FDR that we imagine him to be? You know what I mean? Where are the great leaders? And we're starting to see them appear. And you know, it may be part of that old expression that strong men make good times, good times make weak men, weak men make bad times. We've been in bad times, and it's these times that are now forging real men, real people of character, men or women, but real people of character and courage.
So I was at a event a couple of weeks ago, a PragerU event that Governor DeSantis spoke at, and you know, he goes up there and he just does his spiel. And if you listen to it, it's just common sense, right? He's not saying anything extraordinary. We're not going to let our kids be infected with racism in the name of non-racism. We're not going to indoctrinate kids to think that they're the gender that they're not. Like basic stuff that we all knew 5 years ago. And this guy that I sort of know came up to me after and he said, man, to just hear a little bit of honesty was so incredible. And I think that's what we've all been starved from. We've been starved. They have done, our politicians and our media, our mainstream corporate press, whatever you want to call it, they've been in such dereliction of their duty. Everything that they say, everything. When you and I wake up and we have to cover stories on our show, it's like, man, they lied about this, they lied about this, they lied about this, they lied about this. And then we have to spend so much time cleaning up lies that then by the time we clean it up, there's a new set of lies. And I think that's what, when I talk about a separation, what I mean is, if you've already been fully brainwashed by MSNBC, if you've been fully brainwashed by the New York Times, it's not that we shouldn't try to rescue as many of those people as possible. And I have great sympathy for them. It's sad that
it's a horrible way to live.
It's a horrible way to live, to be completely bamboozled. Completely bamboozled because an entire system was set up to bamboozle you. So to ultimately take your stuff and make you...
Again, they diagnose that there's a system that is of oppression while they're building that system of oppression. It's crazy.
You got to admire it at some level, right?
You do.
One of the things I talk about in the book is that in the original, I think it was 1977 or 79 Alien movie, the first Alien movie, what does the doctor on the ship admire? He admires the alien. Now, why does he admire the alien? Not because the alien is good. He admires the alien because it is mercilessly doing what it set out to do. It is killing everyone on that ship, and it has no remorse, and it has no morality, and it's doing it. And everyone on the ship is being killed, and Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, is like, what are you talking about? But he's going, I admire it for the beauty of that. And you shouldn't admire what it's doing, and that's what I mean about the devil, giving the devil his due with these people. They've done a lot of that. But now we can see it. So it's like, you know what? If you're watching this and your kid is 17 and he's a junior in high school, maybe don't go $100,000 into debt so that he can get a degree in 18th century lesbian archery or something. You know, like maybe don't do that. And if you don't do that, you will actually start building a new world. We have to let some of these things go. And that's I think what the tension is right now. The internet changed things in such an incredible way that we cannot fathom. We simply cannot fathom it. So there's a tension between, we're 20 years into, say, social media version of the internet, and all these tensions of new world and old world, and the fact that our leaders, our political leaders, they're geriatric, and these people are supposed to retire. Nancy Pelosi should be a grandmother. Joe Biden should be in a home, but instead they're still holding on. And we need, say, a 43-year-old guy from Florida who's just given us some common sense.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how old this Congress is. And it goes to the era, I think, that they were raised in, that hippie generation of me. It's all about me. They cannot let go of power because it is all about them. They have no faith in the next generation. You know, by the time you get to be, you know, I'm 57, 58, you might get here, you're starting to look at the next generation and going, that's great. I want to help that. I want to help these people, blah, blah, blah. They're not doing that. They're still iron fisting. Nothing's changed since 1960. you know, get out of your house, get out of Washington and see the world. It's dramatically
What do you think
different.
sits behind that? What do you think sits behind that? Do you think that they actually think that they failed as a generation in a certain way? That if they really were looking in the mirror, they might go, man, we set up our kids to not know how to do any of this, so they feel this undue pressure that's on them. Now, I don't think they're that.
No, they're self-aware. No way. No way.
Yeah. So you think it's just this endless quest for power? Someone like Pelosi, who is, you know, she's whatever she is, she's 81 or something. Yeah. She's running for re-election again. This woman who single-handedly destroyed San Francisco, almost single-handedly. I'll give Gavin Newsom some credit. You know, so and they're sort of related, right? So they're in tandem. But you know, she's running for re-election again. Joe Biden, we know, everyone knows there is something wrong there, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not Dr. Jill Biden, but we all know there's something wrong. You watch him wander around when he gets out of the helicopter and it looks like he's going to fall at any moment, and then the hip goes and yada, yada, yada. Of course, then we end up with Kamala and Pelosi, so you got to be careful. And either way, even if I disagreed with all of their policies, which at this point I do, he's still the pilot of the plane. I still want the country to be in good shape. I don't take any pleasure in this. You know, we can make some silly jokes, but the fact that they refuse to let go, they refuse, you know, our generation, right? So you're sort of, do you consider yourself at the sort of the top end of Gen X, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're
sort of the last year of the boomer.
So, okay. So you're last year a boomer right into Gen X,
64.
and I'm 45. So I'm sort of square in the middle of Gen X. So basically, between you at 57, 58, and then a little younger than me, say 40, roughly 40, those are the people that should be in charge. You have a little bit of knowledge. Your body is still working properly. Your mind is still working properly. Right. You're still interested in new things, but you appreciate the old things.
Correct.
This is where we should be. Alas,
and none of us are running it.
Yeah.
Very few of us are running it. The ones that are all in charge should have retired 20 years ago.
Yeah.
How are we in the age of the biggest advances of all of human history? We're going back to people who were born in 1938?
Well, let's go and give the people the good version of this, which is Elon Musk just got in the game. He's somewhere in that age group. Ron DeSantis in the game, somewhere in that age group. The Judge Mizelle, who I just mentioned, 35. I mean, she's even younger. So there is something shifting. The question is, how much damage can these people do as they let go of power? And that gets to the disinformation thing that you're talking about. Who's bringing this in? It's Hillary.
So there's a couple of things here on this. Let me finish the other example. We had war. The other example is when the Supreme Court comes back, if they come back with abortion, if they come back the way I think they may come back, the left is going to go insane, and they will do everything they can to pack the court. Follow that with an election. If they don't win, they'll burn the country down. You know, they will go insane. What do we do to prepare for these eventualities that they may not, hopefully don't happen, but?
Well, it's a great question. I would say partly you should do what I did, which is make sure you live in a place that is somewhat aligned with your values.
Tell me the difference in that.
Oh, man. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles, California, a place that at one time even Glenn Beck wanted to live because the weather is pretty great and there was something cool in Hollywood at one time before it went bananas. You know, it's 75 and sunny every single day, and that's pretty good. That ain't nothing, you know. But over the 8 years that I was there, first 3 years was fine, and then then you'd see a little more homelessness, a little more drug use on the street, little more crime, but then COVID comes, and next thing you know, there's rioting on the streets, broken windows everywhere, lockdown extraordinary, you know, just endless lockdowns. It was lockdown after lockdown after lockdown. Coupled, I mean, the one that really sort of set me off was when the woman, her name is Sheila Kuhl, she's just a Los Angeles City Council woman, when she was the deciding vote 3-2 to shut down outdoor dining in Los Angeles, but she knew it wouldn't kick in for 24 hours. So where did she go right after doing it? She went to her favorite outdoor Italian restaurant in Santa Monica. Actually, the very next day, I attended a protest at her house. I don't like the idea of protesting at people's houses. That's where they happen to do it. That's where I signed the recall for Gavin Newsom, which you had to do by hand. You couldn't even do it online in the middle of a pandemic. That's how they were really trying to make sure that we wouldn't get this thing through. You had to do it by hand, and if your pen touched either the line above or line below, that would automatically disqualify you. I mean, they did everything possible to keep the machine going. But what I realized in Los Angeles, as riots were literally going by my house, as I was being doxxed and people were showing up at my house, and I didn't have faith that the police were going to do anything. And I got guns for the first time and all of these things. I mean, my ideas got put to the test, right? They really did. And I'm very proud, actually, that I went where I was supposed to go. I mean that physically, but I mean it mentally also, that I went to the end of the road of the ideas. And I tried to stay. I said, I'll fight. Our friend Larry Elder, I campaigned with him. The recall obviously didn't go the right way.
Game changing.
You know, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't know about this. You know who funded the most, it's in the book, most of the ads against Larry Elder was Reed Hastings. Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. So Netflix, another thing that's crumbling right now under its own woke nonsense. Every time you turned on YouTube, if you lived in Cali during the recall, it were the worst attacks on Larry. White supremacist, all the usual nonsense. One of the best human beings I've ever met. I mean,
I love Larry.
You could only hope to be as good as this man. But it was Netflix CEO Reed Hastings doing this. And now Netflix is crumbling under wokeism too. So something is shifting. But to fully answer your question, so then 3 months ago, I moved to Florida. And man, the second the plane was landing, and I was sitting in the cockpit. I have a good friend who hooked us up so I wouldn't have to put my dog, down below. So we were on a private plane. And I'm sitting in the cockpit, and I kid you not, as that plane landed, I felt something lift off me. I had been living. That's what people don't realize. When you are living in a place that is really out of whack with your views, when I'd walk into a supermarket and I would try not to wear a mask, and I'd get yelled at, and then I'd put it on, and then I'd put it below my nose for a second, I'd get yelled at again. And it just never ended. And people didn't want their dogs to say hi on the street. I mean, it really was a mental condition. I was always more worried about the mental virus than the actual virus. I really was, especially after the 2 weeks. I grant everybody a long leash on those first 2 weeks.
I'll even give you a month. 6 weeks. I'll even give you that. After that, there's a problem here.
Well, after that, then what did they keep saying? They kept saying, well, welcome to the new normal. And that's when I knew something's really was wrong. Afoot, because it's like, wait a minute, you guys just conceded a whole bunch of stuff. You just let go of, a couple thousand years of churning through a lot of good ideas to the new normal. And we'll sit alone in our room all day long and pretend that we're tolerant.
It was the new normal. Then it became the Great Reset, and then it was the new normal again. There was a very short period, and that's when I started getting on the Great Reset. I'm like, wait a minute, why are they all saying the Great Reset? Why is that happening? Because we're never going to go back to what we think is normal at all.
You ever get tired of being ahead of the curve? Does it ever?
I do, actually.
But you don't drink. That's the thing.
I know,
you don't drink.
I wasted all those blackouts. Don't do that. The reason why I brought up courage at the very beginning is because I have so enjoyed our friendship and so enjoyed watching you. At one point, some conservatives said to me, you can't do anything with Dave Rubin. You can't. This is like right after, the first time I'm on your show, and I'm like, Dave, we have a lot in common, but we still didn't trust each other. And they said, you don't trust him. You can't trust. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, first of all, he's pro-choice. And I said, so was I for a long time. And I said, you watch. I said, he has the intellectual curiosity and courage to travel down that road all the way to the end. And he's not going to be stopped by, I don't want to believe that. I don't want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That takes tremendous courage. Tell me about that journey that you have taken and the times, have you hit a time where you're like, oh crap, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to believe that.
I think everyone has that moment. If you're going to be honest about the issues, and if you're going to really, if you have some factory settings, right? If you have those factory settings of just sort of default leftism, which is what most people in America grow up with, culture just teaches you this sort of basic set of binaries that don't really make any sense. Democrats are good, Republicans are bad, lefties are for peace, and you know, people on the right care about war. These people care about poor people, these people care about money. It's just a bunch of nonsense. But the entire culture, our movies, our TV, everything, all of the stuff teaches you that. Now, I do think that's starting to shift because of all the reasons that we're talking about. But if you're going to honestly go down the road, and I think the thing that put me on the map was I just was willing to do it. I don't know where that comes from, right? So I don't know fully why I was just willing to do it. But I guess what it was...
Wait, can we stop there for a second?
Yeah.
That concerns me. I was talking to a very well-known capitalist who is just a rule breaker, you know, a small version of Elon Musk. And he said, Glenn, what have we been teaching people? Everybody gets a trophy. There's no losers. There's no risk. You could get hurt. Don't worry. I'll protect you. He said this generation is completely incompatible with a free market, with success.
With reality.
With reality. It won't work because they won't. For you to say, you're a risk taker, for you to say, I got to rethink things. That is, to me, that was one of the biggest risks I've ever taken because I'm afraid, what will I believe in the end? What do I believe? Is my life based on lies? Where is it going to take me? You know nothing when you start on the journey you were on.
Well, part of it was that I guess I just trusted my instinct. A good buddy of mine, my best friend now in life, who's been acting as my tour manager on this tour, we met the first day of kindergarten. And I remember meeting him in kindergarten class. You've met him. And my buddy John. And he always said to me, Dave, you have to trust your gut until it goes so horrifically awry that you then can rethink things. And I think that really got me when he said it to me at some point. I don't know, we were probably drunk at 19 or something when he said it to me, but it really stuck with me. And so when that Larry Elder moment, when that famous moment when Larry Elder and I got into it about systemic racism, and now it's been seen probably 100 million times, and you know, black conservative destroys libtard, and they always put libtard in caps, and it hurts, man, it hurts. But when that moment happened, and I didn't edit it out, right? I told my guys, we must leave it in. We must. That's something real happened. My entire staff at the time, because I was on a network, it was before I was independent, they said, no, we got to take that out. I said, no, we have to. Something came out of me. I just said, no, we got to do it. Well, once that moment happened, that was the first part of getting over the hump. But then what happened subsequently after? Well, then I said, all right, I've talked to this Larry Elder guy. I was told he was a bad dude. Let me see if I can talk to some of these other supposedly bad dudes. And I talked to Ben Shapiro, and I talked to Dennis Prager. And then I talked to Glenn Beck. And then next thing I know, even though, I mean, the first time you came in, we debated death penalty, we debated abortion, I'm sure a few other things. I do think, and I'm happy to talk about anything, obviously, with you, that our differences have definitely narrowed for sure. But what I realized was when you walked out of my house that day, not only you were a nice guy, but it was like, you reveled in the idea that we could have some differences. You loved it. You absolutely loved it.
It sharpens the knife.
And that's the interesting one. So in the first book, you know, most of my audience is conservative at this point. That just is what it is. I take a begrudging pro-choice stance because I believe that you have to have a few weeks. I'm not denying that it's life, so I'm not denying science. Trust me.
I think we're the same. No, I think we're the same place.
Which for you is harder even than me because of some of the base of support. But otherwise, what are we?
I know.
If we refuse to say what we think.
I get to a point, David, and I think we've talked about this on other issues. I get to a point to where I don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I am not going to look at my daughter who has been violently raped, and she just couldn't bring herself to tell me about it for 8 weeks, and just hoping, because that's what people do, hoping it will go away.
Yeah.
I will say to my daughter, honey, it's life. The baby did not do that. However, I am not going to condemn you because I'm not in that situation. And I may pay for that. At the Golden Gate, he may say, you know what, that was wrong. But I don't know how to balance my compassion along with, you know, my conviction that it is life. And so you get to a point to where you're like, it's as far as I can go to where I can personally say, yes, I would do this. And I know I wouldn't condemn my daughter. I wouldn't. I would advise, I would hope, I'd hold her hand. I'd be with her every step of the way. I wouldn't probably go for the abortion, but I probably would think about it if she was like horribly raped and horribly scarred. I probably would.
So what you're doing right there is a very honest thing that we all do, except our politics isn't very good at, which is you're acknowledging that your heart and your head meet somewhere.
Yeah.
And somewhere where they meet sometimes is a little closer to the heart. You're thinking of your daughter. Sometimes it's a little closer to the head where you're thinking, but this is still a life and I believe it's a life. And we don't have to go too far down the road of all of the things about abortion, but I can tell you that, as you know, we're going through surrogacy right now. And when you do IVF, they take a sperm and they take an egg. I know this is very controversial for the lefties because it involves science.
Well, men can, lay eggs too.
Apparently men can lay eggs. It's a whole thing. But they put these things together, okay? And then literally one day later, they can tell you if it's a male or female. Now, how can you possibly tell me that it is not life if my doctor, he's either a mad scientist and a complete psychopath, or he's actually a pretty damn good fertility doctor?
Don't even have to do that for humans.
Yeah.
We talk about, is there life on Mars?
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking microscopic life, but we call it life. Anyway, you have, I don't know how to phrase this, because I believe you were an atheist, then you were agnostic, which I think is the best honest position, you can never prove or whatever.
Yeah.
And now you've rediscovered your faith, but you've always been receptive to the rituals of faith, right? Yeah. But do you actually now recognize God and the miracles of, Moses and all that stuff, or where are you on that?
I can tell you, as we're doing this only, 2 weeks after Easter and Passover, I can tell you that doing the Seder with my family, which Jews have been doing for thousands of years, and that had a little something to do with that Last Supper that Jesus guy was part of, that I really felt something this year that not that I hadn't felt before, but something that felt much more meaningful to me, which was the truth I was getting from the story. The 4 questions, all of it, the truth I was getting from that, of what Exodus means, of freedom. I mean, the Passover story is the ultimate story of freedom, in essence.
It is
fighting a tyrant.
The first anti-slavery message.
It is the story that if the left in America was honest about if they're really about freedom, that's the story they should be telling. But they hate that story because it's attached to religion, right? And they think religious people are backwards and everything else. But when the Seder ended, I turned to my dad. I said, man, this had more truth in it than anything we hear in a modern context. We are bludgeoned with nonsense. We can do all of it. The boys are girls. The 2 plus 2 is 5. All of the stuff. We are bludgeoned with such irrelevant, confusing, intentionally conflating nonsense all the time, that those things, there's a reason, I could do it from a Jewish perspective, that there's a reason that Jews are still here. It doesn't make a lot of sense, actually. There's an awful lot of cultures that have been through far less that are all gone. Somehow, despite pogroms and inquisitions and holocausts that we're only 2 generations off of, somehow there's still some Jews here. And it had something to do with believing in something and keeping those traditions alive and all of those things.
It also had something to do with universal truth that maybe you didn't even understand at the time.
But it's there either way.
Washing your hands.
Yes.
The reason why the Jews were in some places blamed for the plague is because they weren't getting sick.
Yeah.
Because they were washing their hands out of respect for God. You know what I mean? God told us to do that. Everybody else was not. There are
not eating certain foods that got people sick.
Universal truths that are just true.
Can I give you one other line on the God thing that I think is very powerful? Maybe you saw this. Obviously, as you know, I toured with Jordan Peterson, and he would people would always ask him, "But do you really believe in God? What do you really believe?" And Jordan's best answer on this, I think, is is probably something that, regardless of whether you're a Mormon or a Jew or an evangelical Christian, or something that we can all kind of get on, which is, he said that when he was in his early 20s, he started telling the truth for truth's sake, in that he believed that if he told the truth, not that necessarily good things would happen, but it would be the best outcome no matter what, that automatically, by definition, by the very virtue of saying something true, it would have to be better than saying something that was a lie. So if you thought you could lie for a good reason, no, that ultimately truth for truth's sake. And then he said, and this is the part that brings it to faith, he said that's the ultimate act of faith. Because there's no reason, there's no logical reason to say, oh, I believe in truth and I'm going to say the truth and thus that's going to do something good. So saying truth matters is an act of faith if you actually act it out. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do that every second of the day. I try my damnedest. I really do. And I think I'm doing a better job of it now than I've ever done in my life. But that notion, and then you can attach that to whatever your religious beliefs are, whatever your religious stories are, whatever your traditional stories are, and your family's practices and things like that. I think if you can do some version of putting those things together, you'll be, to get back to where we started, you'll be roughly sane.
Yeah. Let me take you to something. I did a chalkboard the other day on the slippery slope of how we have quickly gotten here. And I tried to explain this to my daughter when she was in college, and she was being filled by a university who was asking me to help them build a library. They were, at the same time, they were holding rallies against me, saying I was a bigot and racist. Yeah. But the idea of gay marriage, I've never been against, because I just don't think the government has any place in it, okay? I'm not going to tell you you can't get married. Don't tell my church that I have to marry. You know
and I'm not going to force you to marry a dude.
Right.
We're good.
We're good. We're good. And I said to my daughter, I said, I agree that gay people can be married, whatever. Government is the issue there. But everybody was making this about the government and, you know, and then it was twisted into definitely not the government. It's love. Well, of course, love always wins. Okay. However, I told her at the start, I said, honey, we're not talking about gay people. We're talking about organizations that are making money and want power. So it's not gay people. And I said, you watch. This will erode all of these things, okay? And so I just did, just off the top of my head, we had gay marriage. Then you were sued if you didn't make a wedding cake. Then you were sued if you wouldn't take a picture. Then we had the non-gender bathrooms in Target. And I remember having the argument going, really, how many people does this affect? Really? Yeah. And we were only talking about the bathrooms right then. Then we had abortion, gone from safe and rare to shout your abortion.
Post-birth abortion.
Right, post-birth abortion. Then I don't know anybody who doesn't have compassion for Caitlyn Jenner and anyone who's living their life going through those things in their head. Yeah. Totally. But we went from, forget about passion, she's beautiful, right? Right? She's beautiful, right? The most beautiful woman you've ever seen, right? Now to there is no gender, to teaching our children in kindergarten about transgender when they don't even understand what any of it means. All of it is just, I think this slippery slope thing, we can finally say, yes.
It's real.
It's real.
It's real. And that gets back to what I said about the failure of liberalism, the tolerance of intolerance. They used, let's put it this way, where did you want this to end? You wanted it to end, I can't put words into your mouth, but I think I know you well enough. Where did you want all this to end? You wanted it to end with equality for everyone, right? Yeah. That's what you wanted. And gays got there. The second the Supreme Court dealt with the gay marriage thing, there were no laws in America that stopped gay people from doing anything. You could enter the exact same contract that a straight couple, a heterosexual couple could. And then if there had been any ancillary things that were still around, or maybe in some states or whatever, then we should look at those things. But in essence, there was nothing left. but they couldn't leave well enough alone. And you brought up that there's a machinery here.
Right.
There are organizations, the Human Rights Campaign and GLAAD and these things.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Rock did a joke in one of his specials from 20 years ago. The cops need a certain amount of crime, meaning they need a certain amount of perceived hate. Because I don't even think it's really hate. I can tell you after touring for the last 2 weeks in sold-out shows all over the country, my audiences are conservative. I'm being given baby gifts everywhere I go. Ron DeSantis sent me 2 baby onesies after I met him. I mean, this is the guy who's the poster child for homophobia in America right now. Our friendship, like, these things are not real. And that's not to say that people aren't entitled to their own religious beliefs. Of course they are. And I believe in religious liberty. And I would never force a church or a synagogue or a mosque to have a gay wedding. Although, ironically, Ilhan Omar goes to a mosque where obviously they don't perform gay weddings, but somehow that doesn't really get talked about for whatever reasons, right? So you're right about the slippery slope because they couldn't leave well enough alone. And this is the challenge of America right now. Once you get to equality, they flipped it on us and they said equity. And that's the problem. So
what, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I have a lot of gay friends, and none of them are freight train crazy, you know, on, we got to teach your 3-year-old that he might be a girl. No, I don't know any gay person personally. Now, I mean, you know, I'm not hanging out with people who are generally socially liberal, so it's not a surprise.
But Glenn, but what your gay friends are expressing is what most people think.
Right. Yeah. So because I felt that was true, I think gay people, because I know a lot of gay people who were for gay marriage, wanted that to go through, celebrated that, thought it was great, but they were also like, can we calm down a bit? You know, can we just calm down? And now that it's bat crap crazy what's going on now. Where are the strong, opinionated gays who are not necessarily conservative that will just stand up and go, can we stop?
They're there, but they're afraid. And that is the virus that we've been confronted with, right? The virus that has infected everything has been a virus of fear, that good people just don't stand up and say the right thing. If you were to go back to the Stonewall riots in the 70s, what were the people rioting about? They weren't rioting so that they could teach gender identity to 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds in schools. They were rioting because, A, they wanted equality in terms of marriage, but it was really because they wanted to be able to go to bars that weren't underground where the cops were going to come and arrest them for having consensual relationships with adults. So if you were to say to the average, say, 25-year-old who was in West Village, 1977 at the Stonewall riot, if they were being honest, hey, what were you upset about then? Well, we wanted equality. That's what everyone would say. Now, if you were to take that person and now they're, 65 or something, I would hope that that's what they would be saying, but they're probably just not saying it that loudly. But it's this. I have no good answer for this. It's a really it's a tough one because
conversations. Do you hear it among your gay friends? That this is crazy, that there's no such thing as a man or a woman. That's crazy.
Of course, because also, the next part of this is that it's actually, the trans thing is actually rabidly anti-gay. I think we might have discussed this once. But if you were to take a 5-year-old boy, and let's say he's a little more effeminate, so instead of playing with G.I. Joe or Transformers, which, by the way, I played with, and then I'm gay, okay, doesn't matter. But so there are, there's all sorts of people. There are heterosexual men who are more effeminate and more loving and whatever, but they happen to be straight. And then there are gay guys who are out in the woods wrestling bears.
I know guys. I have friends that I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Really, you're not gay? Because they're very flamboyant. They're not. They're straight.
And that's a beautiful thing. Right. You're not going to believe it, Glenn. Humans are a really rich tapestry of all kinds of craziness. Wow. It's nuts, right? The human condition is really complex.
Yeah, shouldn't stereotype.
It's wild.
Yeah, crazy.
But really think about this. So now you take a 5-year-old in 2022, and this 5-year-old plays with Barbies and is a little more effeminate, whatever that means. What would happen to that kid in school now? We know, which is that the teacher most likely would encourage, or even the parent, would encourage them to start talking about gender identity. You are a boy, but you feel like a girl, don't you? And then blah, blah, blah. We're 2 years down the road. we're 4 years down the road, and Abigail Shrier wrote an incredible book about this, Irreversible Damage, that then they are literally transitioning this boy into being a girl with puberty blockers and the rest of it, and then ultimately it will lead to chemical castration and the whole thing. And most likely, what that boy was just going to grow up to be hopefully a functional gay man, and that's it. So it's actually anti-gay. I mean, that's the thing.
It's also anti-women.
And it's anti-women because you've got Leah Thomas, who, by the way, has male genitalia still.
Yeah.
And have you seen the time lapse? I mean, people show you all sorts of videos with her. There's did you see it? There's a time lapse where they show you the race. So, there's just a camera on the race. And when you see the time lapse, how she, whatever, is just blowing past all of those women, you're like, we all know it. That's the thing. Yeah, we know it's not right.
If this isn't about being transsexual or different, if this were reversed and girls said, and I'm sure there are, but I want to play football, I wouldn't care at all if they wanted to play football. What I would say is, can we protect her?
Right.
Because she's, she may be built differently, but probably not. Those I see in a high school with my son playing. And I'm like, that guy is enormous. He's going to kill you. Broken arms, broken legs, broken ankles. That was last season in my son's little school.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Girls are physically not as big as boys are.
It's just reality.
It's reality. It has nothing to do with anything. So why can't I say that to protect my daughter? And why do I have to not protect my daughter there or protect my daughter over here? She's worked her whole life. She doesn't have a chance to win against this person.
Where does this all end? You know where this ends? This ends with a washed up, I kid you not, this is what's going to happen within 2 years. There is going to be a washed up 6'7" NBA player who is a marginal 2-point-a-game scorer who barely got off the bench, who is going to say, I am a woman. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to play in the WNBA, and he's going to score 45 points a game in 20 minutes, crush all the women, and then the modern feminists will applaud as women are being dunked on by a very average athlete. But again, when you go to the slippery slope thing, you just have to take it all to its logical conclusion. That is the logical conclusion of this. If you believe that your mental state, whatever you feel in your head, overrides your biology, and that's not to deny, I can only imagine, because I can only imagine what that would be like to truly feel that you were in the wrong body. I really genuinely can't imagine it. But that doesn't mean we should sacrifice everyone else in the name of whatever is going on with you. But we've, unfortunately, with all the trophies and everything else, we've raised a generation of people that think the world has to bend to them as opposed to
the other way around,
having to fit into a very complex world.
There was a story that came out about a sheriff in Florida. I'm sure you saw it. I'm trying to remember what city it's in, but there was a string of burglaries. This burglar, has been knocking off houses for like 10 years. And they keep arresting him. They lead him out, and he knocks off houses again. Well, he, last week, was in a string of burglaries, and he hit like 4 or 5 houses. One of the homeowners was home and shot him, but didn't kill him, but shot him, okay? And the sheriff comes out, and they've arrested this kid. He's 21. He's got a crime record since he was 13. And the sheriff said, look, we don't know which homeowner shot him because I think that they think they did something wrong. But in this county, the residual rate of a dead burglar is 0. And I cheered for what he was saying. He's like, you know what? If you don't mind, you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You know, you have all the right, if they're in your house, to shoot them. And the only thing I would say is come to our shooting classes on Saturday, because you would have saved the taxpayers a lot of money on this guy. And that's horrible to say. Right. However, this is the Yellowstone factor. You watch Yellowstone?
I don't. Oh, I know. It's on the list.
I know.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
So you watch Yellowstone, and these guys are killers. The family, they're mobsters, okay? However, it's all couched in common sense.
Yes.
You know the government's not going to do anything. You know they're going to come in here and take our land. You know what that's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so America is coming to this place, and Hollywood knows it.
Yes.
America is in this place where we are not at the place where we are taking it into our own hands, but we're at the place where we look at people and go, yeah, damn right. Good for you. Good for you.
I know a hell of a lot of Hollywood liberals who would not want me to say their name right now that bought guns in the last 2 years. A whole bunch of people that I'll tell you after that would shock you. But it wouldn't shock you because you know that these, at the end of the day, people usually they do what they're forced into doing.
Yeah.
If they can't get there on their own, at some point when the riot's going by your fancy house in Beverly Hills, you might go, you know, I keep calling the police and nobody's showing up, or we've defunded the police or whatever else. But, you know, the Yellowstone thing, although I didn't see it, I know a bit about the show. And it sort of reminds me of The Sopranos in a sense, because why do you love Tony Soprano and why do we love mafia? I mean, Goodfellas is probably my favorite movie of all time. Casino, all the movies, right? Godfather. Why do we love these characters? They're doing horrible things. Horrible things. They're murdering all sorts of people. They're selling drugs. They're doing all sorts of illegal stuff. But there's a code that they're living by.
Exactly right.
And that's a hell of a lot better than no code.
Did you see that Putin, I'm sorry, that there was several suicides of entire families of oligarchs?
Quite
suicides,
rather extraordinary.
Right. What a trend that is. And I thought to myself, you know, this is a horrible thought, but when did the mob kill children? You know what I mean? We like these people because leave the family out of it, man. Leave the family. This is business. You know what I mean?
Well, look, there's a silver lining in what you're saying right there, because now they're going after the kids, right? So the left's going after the kids. When they're literally, I mean, did you see the video just in the last day or two? Joe Biden said when your kids are at school, they're yours. What do you say? They're yours, meaning they're the teachers.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent yet, but I know that is not true.
No, it is not
And there
true.
is no way in high hell that I will ever send my child. So that's where I think the overreach led to Glenn Youngkin. Glenn Youngkin was not supposed to win, and it was only until 2 weeks before the election that he said no more CRT, no more of this BS abusing our kids.
Do you see that in a national level? I see that locally, but I see the Republicans doing nothing. I mean, this is the greatest opportunity ever, and they should be saying, we're gonna dismantle the Department of Education. We're gonna do these investigations, and actually someone will pay for it. And one of those is what the hell happened during COVID. You know, they could really make some common ground that I think a lot of Americans would agree with.
So when you say they, I think the missing piece to the they, and I think we'll find out probably within the next 3 months, something like that, is there's no leader of the Republicans right now. There's no true leader. Is Trump still the leader, or has the ship sailed on that and it's going to be DeSantis, or it's going to be something else? So there's no fully formed message. But you're right, the contents of the message, we need the messenger still, but the contents of basic, get the government off my back, we're not going to go to lockdowns anymore, if you want to wear a mask, vaccinations are not going to be mandated, get rid of CRT, get rid of the gender stuff. That is completely the winning message. And I think actually what we're seeing now, to get back to some of the Elon Musk stuff, with Twitter is as now suddenly guys like you and I, our followers are exploding suddenly. That's not...
Isn't that weird?
Boy, that's awfully weird. Suddenly this guy buys the company. It's not even done yet. And suddenly I gained 100,000 followers yesterday on Twitter.
You know what it is?
We're just that great. And people finally figured it out.
I really think... Because if I were running a dirty company and I knew somebody was coming in and they'd expose me, I would say, you can't change it overnight. You know what I mean?
People.
But just slowly change it and let those people. And that's what's happening. Hillary Clinton loses 100. Dave Rubin gains 100. What?
Glenn, when we find when and if, well, let's say it's when or it's if, but I hopefully think it's when, meaning very soon. When we find out what the level of manipulation is, if we fully get it, I think it's going to completely change the game.
Do you think that will be able to be forensically found?
Well, that's the question. And Elon's not stupid.
No.
Right? He ain't stupid.
No.
And he knew what he was getting involved in here. As I said, he could have sent his family to Mars and just checked out altogether, or he could have bought Bora Bora and put up a freaking wall around the ocean and said, that's it. But he got into this fight. So he had to have thought 10 steps ahead. And he had to have had plenty of meetings with his top people. Guys, once we do this, we're going to have access to all of the stuff. Where are the emails related to the Hunter Biden laptop? Who killed that story? Did it come from Jack at the time, Jack Dorsey?
Does he care that deeply about that, do you think?
Well, it's going to care about him whether he cares about it, meaning he's in charge now. He stepped in it.
Yeah.
So I don't think he stepped in just like, oh, I'm for free speech, let me just have fun. I think he stepped in knowing, man, the Pandora's box here, this is a Pandora's box of Pandora's boxes. So it's like, not only do you have to grapple with the, hey, Trump may want back on, although he's saying that he doesn't right now, but the emails related to the Hunter thing, I think there's some digital record in there.
Yeah.
Did the government or the administration or somebody say to them, kill this story? And if they did, we got something major on our hands. Although half the country won't believe it, so that's another problem.
So let me ask you just two quick questions. On Elon Musk, he is deeply involved with NASA.
Yep.
He is deeply involved in global trade, China, the United States, the government. I mean, they can make his life hell.
Yeah.
And I think they probably intend on it. Do you think he weathers that storm? Do you think I think he does.
Yeah.
That he knows, I've just pissed off every really powerful person, company, and country in the world.
You know, they always say when you get FU money, everyone always says, if I had FU money one day, I'd tell everybody what I think. And I have found, there are a few exceptions to this. I would say in my world, at least Peter Thiel, I would say is someone that really is still fighting to the best of his ability against the system, right? He stepped down from Facebook to fund candidates. The guy's got billions and millions of dollars. Again, could do whatever he wants, does not need to be in the fight. But he is standing up for what he believes in as an outsider, right? Look, you, Glenn Beck, you've got an awful lot of money. You don't have to do this. This could be your retirement show if you want, right? But you choose to fight. There are certain people, you're just wired to. I know you couldn't stop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Even if, it's the same thing with me. If someone literally handed me, here's $100 million, Ruben, get going. I know I could not stop. I could take a week. I could take a week in Hawaii. That would be fine. But I know I would be itching to get back. I think that's what's in him. So, but your question though is, what can the machine do? Can the SEC just endlessly get all of his other companies, Tesla and SpaceX, to be investigated to oblivion and then break him down that way? Can they blackmail him? Can they make up shit about him? Can they, pardon my French, I mean, the litany of things. Of course they can do all of those things, but humans, we do things and we don't know why.
Yeah, we survive.
Raoul Oliver, we do things and we're not sure why we're doing it. And then one day you're gone. You disappear.
Yeah.
But hopefully the legacy, right? Like it's the legacy. You can kill a man, but not an idea.
So last question. We talked about Trump. Is Trump the future?
I can tell you from being on the road for the last little bit where I do a lot, where I mess with the crowd and I ask them what they think about things and I kind of feel them out. Now I get my audience is somewhat self-selected, obviously. I think there's a sense that it's time to move on from the Trump thing. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Like Trump deserves a hell of a lot of credit. And I think that one day, perhaps if the world that we want to build comes to fruition, he will get that credit. You know, maybe the guy wants his name on a building or something, right? I think he likes that. I think
that would be shocking.
A golden calf, perhaps, that says Trump on it. Of course, but he did the thing that we're talking about for this last hour. He was the model for the thing. DeSantis doesn't show up and do the right thing if it isn't for Trump. Those of us that are fighting to the best of our ability, look, neither one of us voted for Trump the first time around, and then we did. I vaguely remember you with some Cheetos. I mean,
oh yeah, I was very angry.
You know,
that was very angry.
Right. But he did something very good. But I can liken this back to the Passover story that we were talking about before. What happens to Moses at the end?
He didn't get to the promised land.
And I think that Trump's story, maybe he had to do an awful lot of stuff to get us to the promised land, meaning we're getting over the hump right now. We're not there, but we're on the way there. But maybe he doesn't, if his promised land is the presidency again, maybe he doesn't get that. But what I would hope he could say, and this is for Trump's heart to figure out, could I run the rallies? Could I fight the media? Could I have all the fun and maybe get back on Twitter or do my thing with True Social and fight for all the ideas, but just not be the guy? Could I be the bodyguard in essence? Mm-hmm. Could I let someone else, and again, here's where I think it's DeSantis probably, but could I let someone else run through the middle can I be the linebacker, you know, and basically create the room so the running back can go right through?
I will tell you that it will be hard for him to do that, I think. But look how much it apparently bothered Obama being in the same room with Joe Biden, where Obama just took over and embarrassed Joe Biden. Yeah. But
you know what I keep saying? We're not fighting the best. Right? If the people we're up against right now are Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and Jen Psaki, right? There's a lot of machinery. I get it.
The machinery is brilliant.
My friend with the blackboard with him at all times knows all about the machinery. But just know the story of one man versus the machine, David versus Goliath. Why does it feel true to all of us? Mm-hmm. Why do we think it's true? Do you just think the machine always wins? Evil always wins?
No.
I don't either. So I guess we got to run with that.
I love talking to you.
I love you, man.
I love you, too. Name of the book is Don't Burn This Country, Surviving and Thriving in Our Woke Dystopia by Dave Rubin. Dave, thank you.